Alright, today's video is looking at what we call passive and active transportation, which occurs across the cell membrane of the cells that are in your body. So we've been talking about digestion, so this is really looking at how nutrients go in and out of cells, and both of these processes are occurring in your body all the time. So the first one we're going to look at is passive transportation, which is the movement of materials from really a high concentration to a low concentration. And the key here is that these ones do not use energy. So it's again, the passive process. So generally you're going from, a high concentration, so the square brackets mean concentration, and you're going to be moving to a low concentration. Things that we would have talked about in grade 10. So there's different types of passive transportation. One is called diffusion. So diffusion, if we think back to grade 10, is just, again, the basic idea. If I just take the X's as your substances or your molecules, you really have on one side, this is your high concentration, and on the other side you have your low concentration. The key here is the membrane that I've drawn here, this dotted line, is permeable to the X's or the X molecules to move across. So because there's a high concentration on this side, the movement is going to move from the left side to the right side. And it's going to do that until it's equal, or you achieve what's referred to as equilibrium. And again, that process will happen in digestion when you have really a high concentration of nutrients on one side and a low concentration of nutrients on the other. And when that occurs, then those high concentration nutrients will then move into the cell or the bloodstream. The other type is osmosis, still a passive transportation method. In this case now you have a movement of the solvent, and which is most cases you have H2O, and H2O is going to be moving from one side to the other. So here you may have, again using the X's, really super high concentration of X's on one side and a lower concentration on the other. And what will happen is, if this is my water level, let me just redraw that. If this is my water level here, then over time what will happen is the water, so H2O, will move across the membrane, and it will move across the membrane until the concentration, so again the square brackets mean concentration, is equal. And so it achieves equilibrium by shifting water, because this membrane in the middle is impermeable, or it's not permeable to the X molecule. So the X molecules cannot move across, whereas in diffusion they could. So again, osmosis is the movement of water from a low concentration to a high concentration. And so that movement of water, again, dilutes those X's, so you end up having a concentration that is equal on both sides. So really, over time, you're going to get two sides, one with a low water side and the other high water side. And if I was to measure pressure here, we would refer to that as osmotic pressure. And that osmotic pressure is driven by the force of the water going across and then pushing up. Again, that is something that we will talk about more in the plant unit, but again, it is also very important for cells. So again, osmosis is the second passive transportation mechanism. It's the net movement of water across a semi-permeable membrane, which is not permeable to the X's. Therefore, the water is forced to move across. And again, the goal is the same. it's going to be equal concentration on both sides. It's just achieved differently. Water moves to dilute the solution, or dilute the solutes that have a higher concentration on one side. The next one is what's called facilitated diffusion. So this one's a little bit different. Still works on a passive transport, so you're still moving from high concentration to low concentration. But the key here is that you have transport proteins. You have these special proteins that are in the cell membrane that only allow certain molecules through. They're like a border crossing, and they're only going to let certain vehicles or certain molecules across that membrane. So keys to this is that they're embedded in the cell membrane. They're molecule specific. So there's only certain types of molecules that can move across. So not every type of molecule is free to move through that protein channel. And really it helps speed up that process of diffusion, hence the word facilitated. So you're facilitating something, so you're helping it along. So definitely these proteins are key to that. Now, again, proteins we know are made out of amino acids, and we know proteins have a very specific structure. Because they have a specific structure, this is why the specific structure matches up with the molecule. So there's going to be a number of different types of protein channels in a cell. Each channel has its own special molecule that lets it through because of its shape. If those shapes change, then the functions of those protein channels will change as well, and they won't be as effective. So just giving an example, this could be here, protein channel 1, we'll call it. And in this one, we're going to have squares. And because of the shape and size of the molecule, the squares are going to be able to move into the area of the intercellular, so inside the cell. So we're going from extracellular to the intercellular. This is protein channel 1. So it only lets the squares through. Whereas this channel over here, we're going to make a bunch of triangles. The triangles can move through the channel there. And I've tried, I'm not a super artist here, but this shape of protein is different than this shape of protein, and then they become very specific to the type of molecule that can move in. Again, still moving from high concentration to low concentration. However, very molecule specific. And again, that function of that is a passive because it doesn't use energy. The last type of transportation is active transportation. Now, again, like it says, it's active, and it definitely uses energy. And the energy is used to move molecules that are either really, really large and they can't move through the membrane as well, or it moves it against its concentration gradient or its electrochemical gradient. So you're kind of almost moving things, instead of moving things downhill, like in passive, going from high concentration to low concentration, active transportation in some cases is moving up the hill. So it's got to use some energy to get those molecules into the cell. Again, protein, that's something I didn't add here, but definitely there is a protein structure involved, very specific to its shape. Certain protein shapes with active transportation only allow certain molecules to move through. And again, these are used with too large of a molecule to diffuse through the cell membrane, or to overcome uneven electric charge, which is really moving against a concentration gradient. Again, square brackets, concentration gradient. And again, that is a super process. Like, if you go on and take grade 12 biology, you'll come across active transportation because your cells, how your nerves fire, how your muscles fire. They all have active transportation involved because they have to move chemicals against the gradient every time they contract. So again, just looking at this example, again, this would be your protein, very specific in shape. really you're going to have, if I use triangles as our molecule again here, you're going to have lots of triangles inside the cell. So this area here is inside the cell. And now on the outside of the cell, we don't necessarily have a high concentration, but through the use of energy, the energy actually is in the form of ATP, again, something that you'll learn in grade 12, which really comes from glucose. But ATP comes in and then uses some of its energy. That bond's broken and forms ADP. That energy is then used to take this molecule and then move it against its gradient, or kind of move it up the hill. So those are your transportation processes. All of those are happening at the cellular level. Cell walls again are flexible, and they call it a fluid mosaic. They're a double lipid bilayer, and nutrients are moved in and out of the cell either through passive transportation. Again, passive transportation, you have diffusion, osmosis, or facilitated diffusion. And then you also have what's called active transportation, which then moves nutrients and molecules against their concentration gradient, or moves very large molecules through the cell membrane that can't go through just through the process of diffusion. And again, the key here, it's using energy. So again, this is something that we'll talk about when we talk about air exchange as well, and like how red blood cells move around, and all of this is involved in the body. So this is a key component that you would want to bring into any topic that we're discussing in animal biology right now at the cellular level. So these are really important concepts, and keep in mind that you want to apply these concepts to the various systems that we're going to talk about throughout this unit.